Welcome to the Wellness in a Chaotic World podcast. I'm your host, Cheryl Davis. Before we dive in, I wanted to note that as a health and wellness coach, I can support you in making sustainable lifestyle changes, tuning into your own wisdom, and building habits that align with your values and vision for your well being. I don't prescribe or treat health conditions, as I'm not a doctor or a mental health professional. Instead, I can walk alongside you as you create a healthier life on your terms. From time to time, I share conversations with guests. The views and opinions expressed by those guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect my views or those of anyone associated with wellness in a chaotic world. This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and isn't a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always talk to your doctor or qualified mental health provider about any physical or mental health concerns. This is the Wellness in a Chaotic World podcast, a place where we're having conversations about what it really takes to live well in our unhealthy, chaotic world. I'm your host, Cheryl Davis. If you're beating yourself up over a bag of chips you ate in a stressed out frenzy, or you can't figure out how anyone manages to find the time to even think about wellness, you're in the right place. We talk about all of these things and more because, frankly, we don't talk to each other enough about what we're really up against every day. Let's change that right now. Welcome back to Wellness in a Chaotic World. This week, I want to address the nuance around a topic that I talked about in the workshop I recently hosted that was geared toward people looking to make lifestyle changes to reverse their prediabetes or to prevent type 2 diabetes. It's very likely that if you have prediabetes, you've heard somewhere along the way that losing weight can cut your risk of developing type 2 diabetes. Maybe your doctor recommended losing weight. Maybe you Googled what to do about prediabetes and found it there. So, okay, you say to yourself, I guess I need to lose weight. But what does that actually mean? Because yes, there is evidence that losing weight can reduce the risk of developing type 2 diabetes, especially for people who are overweight or obese. But lose weight is also kind of a strange lifestyle recommendation when you think about it. Losing weight isn't a behavior. You can't wake up tomorrow morning and do weight loss. You can change what you eat, you can walk, you can strength train, you can work on your sleep, you can change how often you eat out, you can learn how to put together meals that are more satisfying. You can start paying attention to what happens when you're stressed or exhausted and food becomes the easiest source of comfort. Those things are things that you can actually do. And your weight, which is determined by a whole host of other factors, may change as a result of taking those actions. But the advice to lose weight can leave us running on this bizarre, shame inducing hamster wheel to nowhere because the evidence says losing weight can reduce your risk, but focusing on losing weight as the goal may not actually be the most helpful way to get there. I say may not because for some people, making the weight loss the goal does help hone in on different actions to take to make it happen. For others, it's counterproductive. For anyone who feels focusing on weight loss is counterproductive, what if instead we focused not on the number on the scale, but on the modifiable behaviors and underlying causes of the unwanted extra weight? The fun part, many of the actions that almost immediately or very quickly assist with blood sugar regulation are the very same behaviors that can help a person lose weight. Before this episode is over, I also want to touch briefly on the issue with the calories in, calories out mindset. Because while this notion has some basis for being true, I think reducing weight loss and weight maintenance to it's all calories in, calories out can do quite a bit of harm. I don't think it's difficult to see that 100 calories of donut, while calorically the same as 100 calories of broccoli, it's not the same thing. Also, just a quick reminder before we get deeper into the episode, I am a health coach and behavior change specialist, not a doctor or a dietitian. This podcast is educational and isn't intended to diagnose or treat any medical condition. If you have prediabetes or concerns about your weight or blood sugar, please have a conversation with your healthcare team before making any changes to your diet or exercise. So, What does the evidence actually say about weight loss and type 2 diabetes? One of the studies you'll hear me talk about when it comes to preventing type 2 diabetes is the Landmark Diabetes Prevention Program study. The study included more than 3,000 people at high risk for developing type 2 diabetes. One group participated in an intensive lifestyle intervention with the goal of losing about 7% of their starting body weight and getting at least 150 minutes of physical activity each week. After about 3 years, the people in that group had a 58% lower risk of developing type 2 diabetes compared with the placebo group. So, when you hear the recommendation that losing somewhere around 5 to 7% of your starting weight, that's not something someone just pulled out of thin air. There's evidence behind it. And here's what I don't want us to miss. The researchers didn't tell these people, you need to lose 7% of your body weight. Good luck. They, they received intensive support. They worked on food, physical activity, and behavior change. During the first 24 weeks alone, participants met individually with trained staff at least 16 times, with continued support after that. That's a whole different thing from being told at a doctor's appointment that you should probably lose some weight. The goal was weight loss, but what people actually did was work on their behaviors. And I think we lose something when we take all of that and boil it down to lose 5 to 7% of your body weight. Because what are you actually supposed to do with that? Let's say I tell you that you need to save $10,000. Okay, how? Telling you to save 10,000 gives you an outcome. It doesn't tell you how you're supposed to get there. You'd probably have to look at what's going on with your money. What's coming in? What's going out? Where is it going? What can you realistically change? What can't you change? Maybe you're spending money on things you don't really care about anymore. Or maybe you're already stretched incredibly thin, and the problem isn't your spending at all. You wouldn't know until you looked. So, why don't we approach weight with that same curiosity? Maybe we need to ask, what's contributing to my weight in the first place? And that's where things get a lot more complicated. Which brings me back to the calories in, calories out argument. At its most basic level, body weight is connected to energy balance. We get energy from food, our body uses the energy. That's real. That is true. But I have a problem when that gets turned into it's all calories in, calories out. Because what does that actually tell us? Okay, someone is taking in more energy than their body is using. Why? What are they eating? Are they hungry all the time? Does the food they're eating actually satisfy them? Are they sleeping well? Are they sitting at a desk for 9 hours a day? What does their stress look like? Are medications a part of the picture? What food is available to them? What can they afford? How much time do they have to cook? Are hormonal changes playing a role? What about genetics? What has their relationship with food looked like for the past 20, 30, 40 years? There's a whole lot happening inside of calories in, calories out. Those things aren't outside the equation. They're part of what influences it. So saying it's all calories in, calories out might describe what happened from an energy standpoint, but it doesn't necessarily explain why it happened. And it doesn't tell you what to do next. Think about the money example again. If you're struggling financially and I say, it's simple, spend less than you earn. Okay, thanks. Maybe you don't earn enough. Maybe your rent went up. Maybe childcare is eating up a huge chunk of your paycheck. Maybe you've got medical bills. Maybe there are places you're spending money that you could change. We don't know. Spend less than you earn doesn't tell us any of that. And eat fewer calories than you burn doesn't either. But I think there's an even bigger problem with reducing weight to calories in, calories out. If we've established that your weight is simply the result of how much you eat and how much you move, and you control those things, what's the logical conclusion when the scale isn't doing what you want it to do? Well, oh, I guess I'm eating too much. I am not exercising enough. I don't have enough willpower. I'm not disciplined. I'm just not trying hard enough. And suddenly, we're not really talking about energy balance anymore. We're talking about whether you're a person who can get your act together, and that is not harmless. Because aside from the shame that can come with it, it doesn't give you any useful information. If something isn't working, I want to know why. What is getting in the way? What's making it harder? What's happening that we haven't considered? Is there something we can change? Is there something going on that needs to be discussed with your doctor or another healthcare professional? Those questions give us somewhere to go. You need more willpower doesn't. And then there's food itself. This is where I think the calories conversation can really get us off track, especially when we're talking about prediabetes, because food isn't just calories. Yes, food gives us energy, but it also gives us protein, fiber, carbohydrates, fats, vitamins, minerals, and a whole bunch of other things our bodies use. And different foods can affect us differently. How full are you after you eat? How long does that meal keep you satisfied? What happens with your blood sugar afterward? How much protein did you get? How much fiber? Did you actually enjoy what you ate? Are you going to be standing in the kitchen looking for something else an hour from now? Those things really matter. So if we're only asking, how can I eat fewer calories? We may be asking the wrong first question. Because sure, you can cut calories in all kinds of ways. You can skip meals. You can cut out entire categories of food. You can severely restrict what you eat. You can spend all day hungry. You can exercise because you feel like you need to make up for what you ate. And some of these things may make the number on the scale go down. But is that really what we're trying to accomplish? If we're talking about preventing type 2 diabetes, I don't just want to know whether you can make yourself weigh less. I want to know, what are you doing that supports your metabolic health? And can you keep doing it in your real life? And real life changes, right? This is something that becomes especially clear and relevant as we get older. You might reach your 40s or 50s and think, why doesn't what I used to do work anymore? And there's a tendency to explain all of that with, well, your metabolism slows down as you age. Well, I'm not going to do that. The research on metabolism and aging is a lot more complicated than that. But our bodies and our lives absolutely can change. Your body composition may be different, your activity may be different, your sleep may be different, hormonal changes may be a big part of the picture. Maybe you're going through perimenopause or menopause. And then there's just life. Maybe you used to have a job where you were on your feet all day and now you sit in front of a computer. Maybe you're taking care of kids or parents or both. Maybe you're working more. Maybe you're sleeping less. Maybe your stress level bears absolutely no resemblance to what it was when you were 25. Maybe the way you shop and cook and eat has completely changed. None of that means gaining weight as you get older is inevitable. It just means the circumstances influencing your weight at 45 or 50 may look pretty different from the circumstances you were living at 25. So, telling someone to eat less and move more may technically contain some truth, but again, what are they supposed to do with that? This is why I like the idea of moving weight a little further downstream. Instead of starting with, how do I lose weight? What if we start with, what's actually going on here? Maybe your meals aren't satisfying and you're hungry an hour later. Okay, let's look at that. Maybe you're barely moving during your workday. That's something to explore. Maybe you've spent years restricting food all day and then feeling out of control around food at night. That's worth understanding. Maybe you sleep 5 or 6 hours a night at most. Maybe you're drinking a lot of calories without really thinking about it. Maybe the portions you've gotten used to aren't actually the portions that leave your body comfortably satisfied. Maybe your meals don't contain that much protein or fiber. Maybe strength training hasn't been a part of your life ever. Or maybe you're already doing a lot that supports your health. That's useful information too. Now we're getting underneath that number. We're looking for something we can actually work with. All of this nuance matters a great deal when it comes to prediabetes. A lot of the behaviors you might change while trying to reduce your risk of type 2 diabetes can matter even before we talk about what happens to your weight. Walking is a great example. We talked about this in the last episode. When your muscles contract, they can take up more glucose. So, walking isn't valuable only because you're burning calories or because maybe that will eventually contribute to your weight loss. The movement itself is doing something for you. And that changes how we look at success. Let's say you start walking regularly. A month later, you step on the scale and the number may not have changed. Did walking not work? If weight loss is the only thing you're measuring, maybe that's how it feels. But you're moving more. You're using your muscles. Maybe you're getting stronger or your fitness is improving, and you've spent the last month building a routine you might actually be able to keep doing. There may be things happening inside your body that aren't showing up on your bathroom scale. And I don't want us to miss those things because we're so focused on making one number smaller. The same goes for food. What happens if instead of starting with how can I eat fewer calories, you start paying attention to the meal in front of you? Where's the protein? Where's the fiber? Is there a vegetable, fruit, whole grains, beans? Is it enough food? Is it more food than you actually need? Does it satisfy you? Do you enjoy it? How do you feel afterward, after you eat? Are you hungry again almost immediately? What could you add, remove, or change to make this meal work a little better for you? Now we're learning something. And we're getting a lot closer to the question I think we should all be asking ourselves, which is how can I nourish this body in a way that supports my metabolic health and still works for my actual life? And yes, weight loss may happen as a part of that. If you are overweight or obese, losing some weight may meaningfully reduce your risk of progressing from prediabetes to type 2 diabetes. I don't want to lose that point, but I just don't think we need to make the number on the scale the entire project. Maybe it's time to look at weight as information rather than the assignment. The evidence tells us that modest weight loss can reduce the risk of type 2 diabetes. Okay, that is useful information, but maybe the assignment isn't weight loss. Maybe the assignment is getting curious. What are we eating? How are we moving? How are we handling stress? And how are we sleeping? What in our environment could be changed to support our health? Because ultimately, if we're trying to prevent type 2 diabetes, the goal isn't just to make our bodies smaller. It's to figure out what we can do in the bodies and lives we actually have to support our metabolic health. I think if there's one point I'd emphasize from everything I've talked about today, it's that curiosity about yourself and your environment is often a much more useful place to start than a rigid goal that someone else hands you on a silver platter. I hope today's episode was meaningful for you and that you're able to take something away from it for yourself. Until next time, please remember that better health doesn't happen in a perfect world. It happens in this one. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd love for you to share it with someone who might need to hear it, or take a moment to rate and review the podcast. It really does help more people find these conversations. And if you're ready to start creating change in a way that actually feels good and sustainable for you, you can learn more about working with me in the show notes. Thank you for being here. I'll see you next time. If today's episode resonated with you, our private Facebook group is a great place to dive deeper, ask questions, and share wins with people who understand. It's free, it's private, and you can join by clicking the link in the episode description. I hope to see you there.